Hello everyone, my name is Aniruddh Kapoor and I am a Pulmonary and Critical Care Fellow from St. Louis University. Today we will be describing the process of placing endobronchial valves for the treatment of a bronchopleural fistula. Before we proceed, let us review the indications and possible complications of endobronchial valves. The current indications include bronchoscopic lung volume reduction and persistent air leak with bronchopleural fistulas in patients where other treatments have either failed or are not feasible. The complications include pneumothorax, hemoptysis, COPD exacerbation in patients with COPD, respiratory failure, valve migration, as well as pneumonias. Step 1 involves isolating the air leak by balloon occlusion. First, persistent air leak is observed as the passage of air bubbles passing through the water seal system connected to the patient through a chest tube. As you can see in the video above, our patient has an obvious air leak. Next, a balloon catheter is inserted into the airway through a bronchoscope. Starting proximally and moving distally, individual airway segments are systematically occluded by inflating the balloon until the balloon seals the airway. As you can see, when the culprit airway is occluded, the air leak will decrease or stop completely. Step 2 requires measuring the airway and selecting an appropriately sized valve. As you can see from the video above, a balloon catheter is inserted through the working channel of the bronchoscope. This is then inflated within the culprit airway to measure its size. Once the airway size has been measured, the volume of air used to inflate the balloon is then translated to an appropriately sized valve using the table provided. As you can see, the image on the right shows the four sizes of valves. These are 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters, 7 millimeters, and 9 millimeters. Now that we have identified the culprit airway and measured its size, we are ready to load the valve. The valve loading mechanism contains three parts: the cartridge, which contains the valve, the loader, into which the cartridge is inserted, and the deployment catheter. After inserting the cartridge into the loader, the next step involves inserting the deployment catheter into the loader mechanism. As seen in the video above, the loader plunger is pressed to load the valve from the loader mechanism to the deployment catheter. Then after pressing the catheter release button, the deployment catheter, now loaded with the valve, is removed and is ready to use. At this stage, we're ready to deploy the endobronchial valve. As shown in the video above, the deployment catheter is inserted into the culprit airway. Under bronchoscopic guidance, the catheter is positioned so that the target airway is clearly visible. The catheter is then advanced into the airway so that the yellow valve line is clearly visible beyond the target location. Once you have placed the target line in appropriate position, pull on the catheter retractor and deploy the valve. Now that the valve has been deployed, visually confirm appropriate position, making sure that the valve is fully approximated with the target airway. Finally, after successful placement of the endobronchial valve, a chest film can confirm appropriate location. This X-ray will also be used as a baseline to compare location at subsequent visits. In conclusion, the 5 steps of placing endobronchial valves are isolating the air leak by balloon occlusion, measuring the size of the airway, loading the valve, deploying the valve, and verifying valve placement. I would like to thank you for your time and your attention, and please feel free to email any of us at the emails provided below.